All right, welcome everyone. Because we do start on time, we might get started straight away. If any stragglers turn up, we'll let them in, and we'll go from there. So my name is Joshua Roy. I'm a seminar leader and life coach, and I'd like you to welcome you to this event on Heal the Inner Child. I'm just going to check my audio. Just give me a sec. Everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Perfect.
Absolutely perfect.
Okay.
I hear you.
Thank you for that, Gordon. All right. All right, let's get started. So my name is Joshua Roy. I'm a seminar leader and life coach. I've been running seminars now for the last 10 years, and I've covered this topic at least 50 times. So I'm very proficient at what I do and what I know about this topic. I've also done more than 2,500 one-on-one coaching sessions with people, guiding them through healing the inner child work. And so I'm no stranger to this topic. This is a topic I've covered many times in my past, and it's a topic I keep coming back to because I realize that the foundation of healing comes back to the inner child healing work that we do. Because if we can heal that inner child, then you'd be amazed at what can happen to the adult version of ourselves. If you've got problems in relationships, problems in your health, problems in other areas, it may stem back to childhood trauma. And that's something to consider, just to think about, well, is there a link there? And if there is a link, well, let's resolve it. Let's see if we can fix it. And if we can fix that, then we can have a pervasive impact on the rest of your life. So it's wonderful to be here today. Today, what we're going to talk about is heal the inner child. And during today, we're going to consider healing the inner child. Instead of needing to be in therapy for the rest of your life, we're going to do it with a very rapid process. Who's up for that? Let's heal this inner child rapidly. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not take weeks, months, or years to affect change, but let's do it quickly. And so my goal has always been to find the best tools and techniques so that we can speed things up. And the mind is incredible because as we've discovered new techniques, as we've utilized these tools, it's amazing how rapidly people can change if they've got the right tool. If you're wanting to fix your car and you've got the wrong tool, you've got a shifting spanner, it's much more difficult than if you've got a spanner that fits that bolt perfectly. And if you get the perfect tool, you can cut down the amount of time that you use in the healing process. So during today's web class, you're going to learn how to unlock healing for your inner child in a state of joy. Now, we know that pain creates change. We know that when there's a difficult situation, we could call it a significant emotional event, that change takes place. So today, what we want to do is practice changing in a state of joy with a smile on our face, rather than dragging ourselves through change or changing out of necessity because of the amount of pain that we've got in our life. And so what we want to do is change in a state of pleasure rather than pain. So who's this for? Just checking with you, just to make sure you're in the right place. It's for someone who has had trauma, pain, rejection, or loss. If you've experienced any of those things, you're in the right place. It is not for someone who has no resistance from the past and you achieve all your goals. Then healing the inner child work isn't something you need to do unless you're feeling as though you're being held back to some degree, in some regard. So if you stay to the end, there'll be a gift. And also I'd ask you to pay attention, turn off mobile devices, and really lock yourself in for the next 90 minutes of your time. It's about 1 hour, a little bit over an hour. All right, so why am I qualified to teach this? You can see there's the experience that I've got. I've run 700 of these webinars. I've conducted more than 2,500 coaching sessions, and that's one-on-one, helping people heal the inner child and other such work. And I have 9 certifications around the coaching area. So I'm no stranger to personal development. I've delved into it quite heavily, and a lot of that was out of necessity for myself. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to ask you to firstly to imagine your future without your current issue or problem. So if you come today with a current issue, a current problem you're facing, then what I want you to do is just imagine life without that. Just think about it. What would life be like if you were to get rid of you could say, the constraints of the past, if you were to throw off those shackles, which you feel like are binding you or keeping you stuck or holding you back or preventing you from live your best life, preventing you from being unlocked completely in the world. Maybe there's resistance when you're in a social setting. Maybe there's resistance to the amount of money you think you can earn, or the amount of health you can think you can generate or create for yourself, or the amount of passion you can have in your relationship. So if there's something holding you back, if there's something preventing you from having your dreams fulfilled, I want you just to imagine what you would like to see happen. And just take a moment, think about it. What would you like to see happen? What would you hear? What would you feel? Who would be surprised by your success, your achievement, your ability to create a new life for yourself? Who'd be happy for you? Who'd give you the double thumbs up, put a big smile on their face? Who'd give you that hug and that reassurance and say, wow, I knew you had it in you. Well done. You're amazing. Can you imagine that? And then the next thing would be, well, because some people are not positively motivated, some people are more negatively motivated, just consider these last two, only if it works for you. But who would you like to get back out or show up? You know, somebody told you weren't good enough, you wouldn't amount to something, so you say, look, well, I'll show you. That type of attitude. So think about who you'd like to show up and think about whose face you'd like to rub in your success. Okay, and if you can think of one of those, and if that makes sense to you, then use it. If it doesn't, just stick with the first 4 or 5 questions. Okay, so that's where we go to the imagine your future, because if you can't imagine your future, you can't change. You know, if those of you who know Dr. Wayne Dyer, there was a child that came up to him with a stutter. And this child with the stutter asked him through stuttering words, if he could help him. And Dr. Wayne Dyer said, can you imagine yourself stutter-free? Can you imagine yourself with no more stutter in your life? And the boy said, honestly, no, I can't. And he stuttered and stammered as he responded. And then Dr. Wayne Dyer said, well, I can't help you. And he started to walk away. Now he stopped and came back to the boy and he said, listen, if you can't at least imagine what it's like, he said, there's nothing that I can do that will help you, will fix or change the situation. Because all of your successes are successes of imagination, and all of your failures are failures of imagination. You see, it's imagination that controls our world. And so imagination is always the starting point for you, for I, when we desire change. And in the world of personal development, it's paramount, it's necessary, it's mandatory. And so first of all, we start with this idea of imagining a bright, compelling future. All right, next, what we want to do today and what we're going to look at is healing your inner child. And here's one of the benefits from it. It's going to help you in your relationships. Healing your inner child leads to inner peace and harmony and will enable you to show up authentically in your relationships. So realize that there is an effect across the different contexts of our lives, relationship being one of them. Now, healing the inner child may also affect you financially. You may find yourself bringing in more money being more attracted to you, become a money magnet. How would that be? So that's a possibility. What about your health? Well, we also learned that healing the inner child has benefits to someone's health. In fact, studies have been done scientifically about people with disease, sickness, illness, chronic pain. And what they've discovered is that there's a high probability that those issues stem back to childhood trauma. Now, if you're hanging on to trauma of your past and you haven't learnt to release it, then that can affect your health later on in life. Just drop a yes in the comments if you're aware of that. If you're aware that inner child healing work can affect your career, your health, and also your relationships. Does that make sense? That has a crossover effect there, that it can actually affect all the contexts of your life. So this is why it's so powerful. You do a little bit of work on the inner child and it can affect every area of your life. So it really is profound how that works. Yep, thanks, Charlie. I appreciate it. Well, that's the way to think about it. Start thinking about it in terms of, okay, I want healing, and I'm not just healing my inner child, I'm actually getting healing for my life. And doing that work and going back to the child is the best way to get pervasive effects in the here and now. And here's the thing, you could work on some problem you've got at the moment, some challenge you've got. In psychology, we call it a presenting problem. And I'll give you an example of this. Somebody comes to see a coach or a psychologist because they're struggling to do a backflip in gymnastics. And they want to do a backflip. And something's preventing them from doing that backflip. And so they come with this presenting problem, I'd like to do a backflip. But what we realize is that that's not the problem. The problem is when they were 3 or 4 years old, they were told they were not good enough. They developed low self-esteem. And as a result, they were unable to take on risks and challenges and achieve certain things in their life. And so it's not only the backflip, there's other things in their life that are a struggle too. Does that make sense? And so you do the work with that child, you build that child's sense of self-worth, then suddenly the child can do the backflip or the teenager can do the backflip. Does that make sense? So we're working with these inner feelings or inner, you could say, lack that a person may feel or experience in life to then produce results. And the results may be vast. They can be large results. It's almost like a door hinge and a door itself. In comparison to the entire door, the hinge is very tiny, and yet it opens that large door. Think about a large cathedral door. And so that hinge is a decision, and it could be simply a decision as to how you think and feel about yourself. And a little change in that decision can open that large door. And so a little change with the inner child healing work can result in a large change in your life. That's the idea I'm getting at. All right, so other thing you've tried, who's tried to heal their inner child before? Who's tried to ignore it? Who's tried to use distraction and avoidance? That's what the workaholics do. Who's gone to therapy? So if you've done some things in the past, just type yes. Maybe you can type in what you've done in the past. How have you tried to solve your issues? You've thought, well, I'll do tapping. Maybe some people have done tapping. Maybe other people have gone and they've done meditation courses and classes. Maybe you've gone to see a therapist and do what's called self-directed therapy, where you just talk about your problems. And the counselor or the therapist just listens to you and just works on that. Okay, so currently working with counselors on boundaries. Okay, great. So you've tried other things. I want to share with you that there's a new opportunity. You could say there's a new sheriff in town, and here's what it is. And it is nervous system reprogramming, NSR. And I love this idea because what we've tried to do in the past is we've tried to shift a person's behavior. And we use things like cognitive behavioral therapy and other things to try to change your behavior. So you can't do the backflip, let's get you doing the backflip. You see what I'm saying? So we're working on the behavior. What NSR does is it goes deep. It goes below the surface. And the healing the inner child work through NSR, nervous system reprogramming, is creating healing internally that will then show up in the various contexts of life and the various areas of your life. And so NSR's a new opportunity that I want to present today, tell you about, and I'll let you know more about that as we go. Because NSA, I believe, is the most powerful way to create long-lasting change that has ever been discovered. So letting you know about myself and where I first discovered this and how how I came across it and how I started to, you could say, heal myself was with my family. Now you can see here, there's a picture of my wife, Rebecca, my 3 children, Jessica, Leah, and William. I was perfectly happy. Everything was fine, but it wasn't always that way. You see, it was only about 2 years before this picture that I'd gone through a divorce, about 3 years before this picture. And during that divorce and separation, it was really difficult. It was hard. It hurt a lot. And I remember thinking, you know what, I could take the pain away by wrapping my car around a pole. I don't know if you ever thought that way, but that's how I was thinking at the time. And it wasn't really good. I just wanted the pain to stop. The pain was so strong in my life because of the pain of separation. And then after this event, so the children and I were happy and my wife was happy. Rebecca, I'd remarried. Everything was going great. And then what happened? Well, my children decided to go live with their mother. And I was cut out of their lives for a period of time. And that was devastating to me. Like, that hurt worse than getting divorced. And that was another loss. And so I wanted the pain to stop from that as well. And at the time I had no money. I was paying high levels of child support. I was emotionally bankrupt. I loved my children. Suddenly it was a forced separation from them. I didn't want this to happen. And I didn't know what to do with all of these feelings inside. Now, I don't know if you can relate to that. Have you gone through a situation that, let's say, school, your parents, no one prepared you for it? You didn't know what to do. You're emotionally inadequate to deal with the situation. If you've had a situation like that, just write yes in the comments. If you had a situation where you were emotionally unequipped to deal with the situation and you just had no clue what to do, that's where I was. So at the time, because of the level of pain, my motivation was low. Time, I just felt like, is it ever going to end? It's never going to end. It's just going to be there forever. And so it was taking too long. I was told that time heals, and yet it was taking time. And the other thing was, no one understood me. It was hard in my circle of friends to find someone who's gone through that because there was no one out there. And so I started reaching outside of my normal circle of friends, family, and and I've looked for answers. I thought, there's got to be answers out there. I need to find it. In fact, if you walk into a library, there's a whole row full of the self-help section where people talk about healing. And I learned all about why I was feeling this way, but how to fix it, how to deal with it, I didn't know. Who's ever been in a situation where you've tried to work out how to heal and you don't know what to do? I was told that time heals. You just got to wait. You just got to be patient. I wasn't happy with that answer. It seemed ridiculous that nobody could help me through this. I was on my own. I'm treading water. In fact, I felt like I was drowning in my own misery, my own despair. It was just a horrible feeling. And like I mentioned before, these thoughts came to my mind. These thoughts here. So I needed help. School, family, nothing prepares you for a major loss in your life. Nothing prepared me for this major loss. And I had no clue what to do with it. I'm even a little bit ashamed to say this, like now, looking back, that I thought that was a solution. And I was looking at it as who's ever felt that way? Have you ever been in such a dark, low place that you've considered something along these lines? So if you did, then that's where I was. That's what I was feeling. Now, here's what I didn't know. What I did not know was that loss stemmed back to my childhood. I didn't know that. I thought that, well, I'm just dealing with a current situation. I'm just dealing with a current loss. But now I understand that, wait a minute, within the first 7 years of life, your imprint period, as psychologists call it, you learn so much because you learn things for the first time. In fact, one psychologist said, in the first 7 years of life, you learn 80% of everything you'll ever know. And the academics among us think, well, how can that be? You know, there's so much that we can learn because you're learning it for the first time. You're learning it unconsciously. You're learning it below the level of conscious thought. So there's a lot of learning that goes in. And so I discovered that the way out of this situation was healing, but not healing for my adult self, healing for my inner child. And I realized that was going to help me. So I went along to a program, a course. I met a man called Scott Harris. Now, Scott Harris works alongside Tony Robbins. Some of you may have heard of him, some of you may not have. But I went to his class, his session. I did some coaching, did some training, went along to the class, and I discovered something brilliant. And when I learned this, it changed everything. Totally set my life on a different course, different direction. So I'm going to tell you about it. So here's what it is. I discovered the perfect healing process. And here's the first 3 steps of that process. And when I learned it, it blew me away. I was like, this is what I needed. I needed to understand that there's a journey, there's a path. I needed a map. And I need, like, if I go orienteering and I want to get to a destination and I've got a good map, well, I can follow the map and I can reach the destination. The trouble is, nobody gave me a map for how to deal with emotionally difficult and heavy situations. I didn't know, had no clue. This was the map. And so once I started looking into this map, and here's what happened. I discovered the first step was to recognize it. You've got to know what you're dealing with. Second step was to stop picking at it. And I needed to emotionally stop picking at it. Means I need to stop ruminating. Some of you ruminate. I know that. You think about your past. You think about your failures. You think about the trauma. Now, some of you do it consciously. Others do it unconsciously. You're not aware of it. It's happening in your mind. It's happening while you sleep. It's happening below the level of conscious thought. Okay, so here we are picking at it. And the next thing is forgiveness. So I realized that if I didn't recognize what was going on, if I didn't stop picking at it, if I didn't tell a new story or tell the story in a different way, if I didn't find forgiveness for myself, for my children, for my ex, for the situation, if I didn't find, then there was no healing. And once I had a map, I could start moving towards my destination. And so that's exactly what I did. So I learned every technique that I could until I found ones that worked. And I'm going to share a little bit about what I found today, the techniques that work, so that you don't have to rifle through those that don't work and you can go straight to the ones that do, especially when it comes to healing. Who's up for that? Who'd like to learn the techniques that actually work? And the other thing is, who'd like to get the techniques to work every time? Because I'll show you that as well. Okay, so I was searching for answers. I spent 5 years, 2015 to 2020, searching for the answers. I attended 20 seminars. I spent a couple of hours every day on a morning routine, wanting to install it into my nervous system so that I could create the change. And I found out faster ways to do that now. But what I discovered was growth unlocked joy, which led to happiness. And I remember the day when it happened. I actually walked out into the woods. I had all this pain from the loss inside me. I was crippled inside because of the pain. I was almost bent over because of the pain. I would just stop my vehicle sometimes when I was driving and start crying for no reason, just from the loss, from the hurt, from the pain. I don't know if you can relate to that. And I remember the day that it happened, I went out into the forest. There's a little wood section, a nature strip beside my house. And I went out into that nature strip. And I remember letting it out with my voice. I remember I screamed, I yelled. I remember I let it out. I remember I used all of the muscles in my body. I tensed up. I released it. Something happened in that moment, and there was a click. There was an instant moment where all the pain left my body. And I thought, that's interesting. I came back home. The pain was gone. But I thought, well, I wonder if it'll be gone tomorrow. Woke up the next day, the pain was still gone. The next day, all the next day it was gone. I kept thinking in the back of my mind, I wonder if it's going to come back. And it never did, and it never has. And so I realized that this is a complete healing process. Who's like a complete healing process? Who'd like to see that happen? I discovered that it was real. This is not just hyperbole. This is not just me speaking or running my mouth. This is not rhetoric. What I'm talking about is actual tools that actually work and get you healing. All right, so Unlock Your Incredible Self. That's where the seminar Unlock Your Incredible Self was born. And that's why I do what I do today, because I discovered healing. It's real, it works, and it works for everybody. So I've tried it with other people. So I worked with Dee. Dee had a problem where she was waking up 2 times a week with nightmares. We did the healing inner child work, no more nightmares, no more waking up in cold sweats. She was able to sleep through the night and it made a big difference in her life. Carla, we did the healing inner child work with Carla. She said that this inner critic, she had this little voice in her head that would constantly tear her down, rip her down, would criticize her, and it was horrible to deal with. And we turned that into a cheerleader. So now she has a cheerleader in her head that's cheering her on every day, and she loves that. Pam was unable to forgive her father for 65 years. She was 65 years of age. She went through this healing the inner child process work. As she did the work, she found that something shifted. She then forgave her dad. And after forgiving her dad, her whole life changed. So realize that you can hold on to these things like not forgiving someone for your entire life. And that's what Pam was doing. Now, luckily, Pam was able to forgive her dad and release that and get the changes that result. And she became a happier person. She was much more positive, much more confident within herself. It was just an incredible turnaround. All right, so after 10 years of research, studying, paying for events, attending seminars, and 85,000 invested, I discovered the hard way. Today, because you're here, I'm going to give it to you the easy way. I'm going to tell you everything that I learned in my 10-year journey today so that you can start healing your inner child. Who likes that idea? All right, very good. So there's 3 keys that I discovered. The first key is your ability to consistently create your dream life and never lose motivation. I realized that inner child work helps you live a better life. You see, if you want motivation, if you want to create a life, well, it starts with healing the inner child. That's the first step. Once you do that, your life will go into a different trajectory, or in a different trajectory. You're going to a different direction. You can create the life of your dreams. Next, the ability to ensure that mindset and empowerment tools work every time. When I first started this work, it was a bit hit and miss. I didn't know if I could get a tool to work. Somebody would tell me this tool works, but then it wouldn't work for me until I discovered how to make it work every time. And the next one, the third one, is the ability to experience happiness and excitement each and every day. I thought that was hyperbole. I thought that was rhetoric. I thought people that talk about getting excited every day, they'll make it up. But I realized it's real. It's actually real. You can actually do it. And I'll show you how in a moment. All right, so let's go to key 1. So how to be consistent in creating your dream life and never lose motivation. So what we need to do is learn from the past, look to the future, live in the present, and love our life. This is actually what personal development teaches us. It teaches us about goals and goal setting. It teaches us that we need to let go of the negative self-talk and those negative words and those things that hold us back. So we learn from the past, we look to the future, we live in the present and love our life. That's actually the goal of most personal development, is to accomplish that. The goal setting, the working hard to achieve things, that's what personal development is. All right, now I discovered when Success Resources contacted me and I'd gone to a seminar, it was about 6 months had passed. They rang me up to see how I was. How are you traveling? Are you ready for the next seminar? Just checking in with me. And at the time they asked me a question. They said, are you as excited today as you were when the seminar was happening and when you went and you learnt that great material? And I said, it's interesting because I think I'm more excited. And they were shocked by that because that's not usual. You see, most people go along to an event and then they find their energy dropping, their motivation dropping. They need a prop up. They need someone, they need like a booster. They need something else to keep them motivated, like some external force. I discovered there's a way to self-generate those emotions. Isn't that interesting? And so they said it was very rare. They said only about 1% of the population actually does this. And I discovered the key. I'll tell you about it. So here's what I discovered. The key to doing that or having that is emotional clearing. That's what it's called, emotional clearing. So you can see there's a picture I've got there, emotional clearing, release negative feelings and awaken unconditional happiness. I discovered that a way to find happiness is through emotional clearing. You've got to clear out the emotions of the past. You've got to do the inner child healing work first. Then you find more happiness. A lot of people are looking for happiness and not finding it, but they're still carrying all the baggage with them. the baggage of their past. We've got to release that. Then you can feel happy. And so what I have got now and what I've collected is a number of techniques, and I'll tell you about these tools. The first one's called the GIFT. Now, that's a general emotional clearing process, the GIFT. The next one is NTT. That stands for Neuro Transformation Therapy. Now, what that does is that works with one negative emotion at a time. For example, if you said, I'm feeling sad, then I might say to you as a coach, I'd say, okay, let's clear out sadness. Okay, can you tell me the times where you felt sad? And you might go through a time when you were 5, a time when you were 7, a time when you were 9, a time when you were 15, where there was these sad incidents in your life. Maybe you went through a loss or a pain. You were really sad as a result. So what we do is once I collect all those and I get the stories around them, then we do is we equilibrate them using NTT. We get rid of those negative emotions. Now we might start with sadness, then we'll go to the next one. Okay, what's the next emotion? Anger. Okay, let's look. When were you angry? Okay, I was angry when I was 3. I was angry when I was 7.
Yeah, 28 U.S. Marines.
Good. And unmute.
Ford Raptor trucks, helicopters landed.
For some reason, somebody's unmuting themselves. Apologize. All right, does that make sense? Just drop yes if that makes sense. So what we do, so NTT, Neurotransformation Therapy, works with one emotion at a time. So while you've got the GIFT, that's a general clearing process. NTT is very specific. And I use a technique with that called Space Odyssey to help clear that out. Once we clear out one emotion, and it can take an hour to clear one negative emotion. I might spend an hour with a person on sadness. I might spend an hour on rejection. I might spend an hour on some other emotion, sometimes up to 90 minutes on these, because realize that we've all got different levels of trauma in our lives. And if we don't clear them out, then they stay with us. You stay stuck. And that's an awful place to be. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health. It's not good for your life. So the next one is we've got the grey room. Now, the grey room is specific to the events of your life. So what you've got is the GIFT is a general process. It just does everything. So it's one process, one-stop shop. It does everything. The grey room is specific to the events of your life. So if there were situations in your life, different events, we call these turning points, but they could be emotionally significant events. Like say somebody died, somebody you love died, you lost a pet, something tragic happened, there was a car accident. So these events in your life, the grey room works with events. The Iron Man process, that's specific to personality traits. So if you don't like the personality traits that you have, well, we can fix that. We can give you more confidence. We can reduce your fear and anxiety. We can give you more, what would you say, more happiness and reduce the sadness. We can create a difference in your personality traits through that process. And then there's another one called the womb of eternity, and that's specific to negative self-talk. So if you find yourself talking critically to yourself, then if you do that consistently, then the womb of eternity, it's also contain. Well, there's two processes in one: the womb of eternity and also the voice of authority. Then what you do is you upgrade the voice of authority in your life, and what that'll do is drown out the negative self-talk. So your inner critic becomes your inner cheerleader. Does that make sense? Now, I just want to check in. Does that make sense? There's a number of techniques. There's a number of processes. They're all done through a process of meditation. I use meditation and I use a hypnotic language, and I use different techniques that help a person to create this inner change. And so if somebody's got a really, really traumatic past, I might take them through the whole lot. If somebody doesn't have much problem, then I might work on one or two of these. But it all depends on the individual and what the individual needs. Does that make sense? Emotional clearing, hygiene is extremely important, says Charlie. Thank you for that. When does this meeting come to an end? Well, we've got about 35, 40 minutes left. So thank you very much for that query. All right, let's go into the second step. So step 1 is emotional clearing. That's the first thing. So if you're going to meet this, how to be consistent and create your dream life and never lose motivation, well, clearing work is first. You start with the clearing work. Clear out your past. Next, you've got to create a vision for your life, a bright and compelling future vision. And this is about goal setting. But I think of it this way: tasks, goals, vision. So vision is the big picture. Then you scale back to your goals. Then you scale back to your task list, the things you want to accomplish today. So think of your life as being a series of tasks which lead to goals, which lead to a vision. And so Destiny Technology teaches us that we're moving in a direction. And if we can get the right story, state, and strategy, we can hit our targets more and more often. Next one is coaching. And so what I provide for people is a living program where there's group coaching sessions happening every 2 weeks. And in these coaching sessions, it helps people stay accountable, helps people stay in charge of their life, and helps people to continue to get the new tools that will help them to grow and move forward. And step 4 is tools. And what I also run is a monthly tool development program. I also quite regularly use the tools in the coaching, and I also teach the tools in seminars. And so there's many places you get the tools from me, but I've discovered that NSR, learning these tools, is the fastest, most effective way to create the change that you desire. And so I want to tell you about Carla. So Carla had the inner critic. She had this inner critic in her head, and she said when we went through the healing inner child work, tears came down her eyes. She forgave her ex-partner that she held a lot of resentment toward. And once that happened and the tears came down her eyes, she said that the feelings all left her body. All of those painful feelings left her body, and she said she was finally free. And she said she felt that there was a connection, conscious, unconscious came together, finally joined herself. And she felt complete, whole, and perfect in that moment. And it was just wonderful. And the beautiful result of that was that her inner critic turned into what she described as her inner cheerleader. And that was great. Now, Ellie came along to the session, and Ellie was also harboring a lot of anger towards what had happened in her life. She was married to a man. She separated from him, and then he passed away. And so there was a lot to unpack with Ellie and a lot of change work that she needed to do. Healing the inner child for her made a huge difference. In fact, here's what she said. Ellie said that she did work on her own, and she said she was doing work on her own for about 5 years. Once she joined the program and started doing some coaching and other work, she said the changes that she had in about 4 months were greater than the changes she'd had on her own in about 5 years. So she said it was just amazing to get that extra boost and to create that progress, because she was able to learn from someone who understood how the mind worked and understood how the healing process worked. Because I could give her the map, we could get her there more rapidly than she could do on her own. And that was amazing. Now, with Margaret, we did NTT. We started looking at Space Odyssey, which is that technique for individual emotions. And the change with Margaret was that Margaret was isolated. She felt like she was a loner. She was all alone. She was making good money at work. She was doing well in her life, but didn't have the relationships that she wanted. Now, when we started healing the inner child, suddenly her relationships opened up. She made 2 new friends within about a period of 2 weeks. She's still looking for a lover, so that'll be something that she'll continue to do. But at least now she has some girlfriends. She has some people she can contact and rely on and communicate with. And her world opened up because she healed the inner child. So realize this, that it wasn't just about, okay, let's set a goal to go and make new friends, because that was her presenting problem. The real problem was she was harboring trapped emotions from when she was a child. Once we released those, then making friends became easy. Does that make sense? That you heal the inner child and it makes a difference to your world, the here and now, whether it be friendships, whether it be relationships, whether it be health, whether it be finances or your ability to create or generate money. For her, she was making money, so there was no problems there. There were challenges in the other areas of her life. Healing the inner child work for her was the key. All right, so who's this work for? Works for mothers, fathers, works for husbands, wives, works for anyone who's committed. It works for someone who shows up. It works for someone who's open to change, and also works for someone who's seeking happiness. So if any of those are you fit into any of those categories, then these techniques will work if you're wanting to change. So here's the first key. Your ability to consistently create your dream life and never lose motivation stems back to those steps. Emotional clearing, doing that inner child healing work, creating a vision, coaching, and tools. So if you understand that, you understand that living your dream life, it's not impossible. It's very possible. It requires you to take some steps to create those change. And it all starts with emotional clearing. So let's move on. Let's have a look at the second key. So how to ensure that mindset empowerment tools work every time. Now, this was a huge one for me because I'd go and do techniques and sometimes they'd work. Sometimes it was hit and miss. Who's ever had that? Just type yes if you've ever felt that. You've done some work on yourself and you feel like, is it even working? Like I feel like nothing's changing. My income hasn't increased. My lifestyle hasn't improved. Nothing's different. Is it working? Okay, so I discovered, and I was actually online when I discovered this, and I go onto YouTube, much like other people in the world. And I remember I was surfing through the internet and I came across a guy called David Snyder who teaches NLP. And I discovered this one thing. And I mean, there's a lot of things that he talked about and he said, and I learned here and there many different things, but here's something that caught my attention. And I not only learnt it, I retained it, I taught it, and I started utilizing it every time because I realized it works. And here's what it is. So I discovered it through surfing. So here's what it is. Step one is the psychology of the instructor. One of the reasons why tools don't work is the instructor doesn't believe it. The instructor doesn't have absolute knowledge and total conviction. The instructor doesn't know. The instructor's hopeful. The instructor's trying something new or different, but the instructor doesn't know. Who believes that there's a difference in the quality of education depending on who's sharing it? Who's noticed that? There's some, like you might hear the same concept, but you hear it from one person and it carries more weight, and you hear it again from another person and you doubt it because it was almost like they said it in an uncertain way, like they weren't sure of themselves. Like if you went to see a doctor and that doctor's going to cut you open and that doctor says to you, I hope it works. And then you go see another doctor and the doctor says to you, listen, this is going to work and we're going to get your result. You'll be back up on your feet. Which doctor do you want to do the operation on you? The second one. So straight away, Gordon put number 2 up. So you want someone who has total conviction and absolute knowledge. You want someone who's got what we call the map. If someone's got the map that leads to buried treasure, you want to follow that person rather than following the person on the hope plan. Like there's 2 pirates and the one's got a map and he says, here's where I've got the map for the buried treasure. And the other one's going, it's out there somewhere. Come and follow me. You're going to follow the one that has the map. And that's really what it comes back to with the psychology of the instructor. Now, I like this particular picture. This is Han Solo. And Han Solo's saying those words, I know. And he's saying it because Princess Leia says to him, I love you. And this was his response. I know. Now, it's a bit of a joke and it's fun. And it's not a normal response that you would give if somebody says, I love you. But it just shows you his psychology. He believed in himself. And I tell you what, when it comes to success in life, belief in self is paramount. That's at the top of your list. Believe that it can be done. And it's really important when you're choosing a coach. Find someone who has an outstanding, not just an okay psychology, you want an outstanding psychology. They know what they know and it works. Okay, next is play pretend. You got to learn to play pretend. Third, full absorption. Absorbing yourself in the process is necessary, it's paramount. And lastly, have fun. Now, having fun puts you in a childlike state. When you're in a childlike state, your brain becomes more malleable and changeable. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches us when neurons fire together, they wire together. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means when new information comes into your brain and your brain lights up like a Christmas tree, new connections can occur. New synapses, we call them. New neurological pathways in your brain are created. Now, in order for that to occur, our brain needs to go into a childlike state, a state of joy, a state of curiosity, a state of fun. And so if you can have fun with change work, then your brain becomes more malleable. Your brain can change shape more easily, which means that you can create change even beyond the age of 28 years of age, where scientists have told us the brain becomes set in stone. The old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, is this concept that your brain becomes locked into place. And the only way to create changes thereafter is to get an adult into a childlike state. If I can get an adult and make that adult playful, if I can take someone who's 60, 70, 80 and get them to have fun and get them to be playful, then what happens is their brain becomes malleable once again. Okay, so realize that. A lot of people think that, well, I can't change now, I'm too old. Well, yes, you can't change unless you can get into a childlike state. And through the course that I do, I show people how to do that. And so once again, those 3 things, or 4 things, there's 4 steps. The psychology of the instructor. Number 2, the second thing is play pretend. 3, full absorption. 4, have fun. So these are the steps that we require if we're going to make change. Is that good to know? Just write yes if that's good to know. If you can do that, you can change. If you can use the faculty of your imagination, you can change. If you can't, you're stuck. You're trapped. There's no way out. So you've got to play pretend. You've got to use your imagination. You've got to become childlike once again so that you can create new pathways and create new change. So that's the idea of that. So here's what I want you to do. Just close your eyes for a moment. If you're willing to follow instructions, you can do this. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to pretend, just pretend this. Pretend that you're going back in time and rewind the clock. And I want you to go back and I want you to visit your inner child. Just rewind the clock all the way back, drifting, floating, flying, dreaming, moving all the way back into the past. And I want you to imagine that there's a little child that is you and he or she is right in front of you. And I want you to look into his or her eyes, that little child that is you. And I want you to pass on a little message to that child. Say this, just say, I love you. Just say that to your own inner child. This is all in your imagination. It's all in your mind. And yet you can make it as real as you'd like to make it just by imagining that child that is you, imagining the way you looked, the way you are, your personality. You might want to kneel down in front of them. Just tell that child you love them and notice their reaction. And now the other thing I want you to do is just reach around that child. Just reach your arms around the child, give the child a hug. Just give that child, and let that child know that no matter where they go, no matter what they do, no matter how the events of their life play out, you will always be with them to guide, nurture, support, and love them. They'll never be alone. They'll never be alone. And just give that inner child a hug and notice that inner child begins to shrink until that little child fits perfectly into your heart. Just go ahead and find that child. And if you want to put your hand on your heart, just do that now. And just imagine that that child is now living in your heart. That child is now in your heart. That child is safe. That child now believes that it will never be alone. That child feels loved, supported, cared for. That child was given a promise that they would never be alone. And so all the loneliness is gone from that little child that is you. And just imagine that. Imagine that happening. And while you're doing this, put a smile on your face. Because the idea is if you can have a little bit of fun while you're doing this, if you can realize that using the faculty of your imagination, it's fun, and you can create changes, just put a smile on your face as you have that little child in your heart, safe, secure, joyful, feeling as though everything's going to be okay. And allow that little bit of healing, that taste of healing to happen. I'm going to count you back now from 1 to 5 on every ascending number. You'll find yourself returning back to this place we call reality, bringing with you a brand new reality. Number 1, you're the one who's desired to live, to learn, to love, to leave a legacy. You're the one who's allowed yourself to go through this process of healing. And you're the one that's placed that inner child into your heart. Number 2, all of these suggestions from me to you and from you to your other than conscious mind will now go 10 times deeper than ever before. Tonight, while you sleep, while you rest, your unconscious mind will continue to heal that inner child that lives inside of you now, that's in your heart, and continue to create healing as you sleep. New synapses, new neurological pathways will be created, which will lead to healing, which will lead to greater love, which will lead to letting go of trauma, which will lead to healing all throughout your mind, body, spirit, and soul. Number 3, just remember there's always 3 ways to overcome any situation, circumstance, or challenge that you face. There's always 3 ways to heal the inner child of everything that inner child has ever experienced throughout their formative years of life. And you will effortlessly, easily grab hold of those solutions for the benefit of yourself, your inner child, and anybody else concerned. Number 4, because it's all for you. You've done the work. You've allowed yourself to go through the healing, and you've created the change in your mind, in your heart, throughout your nervous system for yourself. On this next count, you'll find yourself returning back to this place we call reality, bringing with you a brand new reality. Glad to be alive, ready to thrive. Number 5, just go ahead now and wriggle your fingers, wriggle your toes, put a big smile on your face, gently open your eyes, and welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. So if you'd like to learn more about this and you're really intrigued by what we just did, and this all makes sense, here's what I want you to do right now. Send me your phone number in a private message. I will send you more information about healing the inner child. I'll send you more information about the courses and programs that I run. I'll send you information that will help you, and I'll send other tidbits of stuff that you can start using straight away. So if you'd like to do that, just send me your number in a private message. Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate that. Anybody else, just send me your number. And what I'll do is I'll send you information. I want you to start healing that inner child and continue that journey for yourself. So we just started it now, and hopefully you're feeling a bit of a difference right now. So Gordon, I'll send you a message and you just respond. I'll just say the word hi, and it should automatically allow you to respond as a private message. Okay, anybody else doesn't know how to send a private message, let me know and I can do that for you. All right, so who enjoyed that process? That was it. Look, that was just a minuscule version of the gift. That was only a tiny version. That only took about 5 or 6 minutes. The gift is a process that goes for about 15 minutes, and it's a wonderful process. Then you've got the grey room. Then you've got Space Odyssey. And then so there's many different processes. In fact, the most I've ever done with one individual is about 6 sessions just on healing the inner child work, just on this one topic. Okay, so it's really important to get it done. Once it's done, you're healed. Once it's done, you then move forward, and you find that you've now cut the anchors of your past. The analogy that I draw up is this. Imagine you've got a jet engine on your back. You've got a jet engine. And most people think that the way to get more success in life is to add more fuel to the engine. So they work harder work longer hours, push themselves consistently, and then they wonder why life's not working. So here's in the analogy, just imagine that the person's then looks down and they notice there's a rope attached to their ankle. And that rope is attached to an anchor. And so they can't go anywhere because the anchor's holding them back. So now if you were to imagine a guillotine coming down and chopping that rope or severing that rope, a giant pair of scissors, so suddenly the person's now free. That's what emotional clearing is. You go backwards, you do the work, you clear out the past, now you can propel yourself forward. That's the concept. Does that make sense? All right, so what we did then, we just so you can tell that I have an outstanding psychology. I know this works. I've done it with many people and I've seen the changes. Play pretend, this is your part, where you've got to pretend you're like a little child. Full absorption. Full absorption simply means follow instructions. Have fun. If you put that smile on your face, smile on your doll, they say, that helps create the new pathways in your brain, which creates and generates change. So what we've got here is Venny. Venny had pain in his wrist. We did a technique, all the pain was gone. We got it down to a 1 out of 10. It went from an 8 out of 10 to a 1 out of 10. Incidentally, just with that little tool that I showed you, which is an adaptation of the gift, who felt a bit lighter? Just put yes in the comments if you felt a bit lighter. Put a yes in the comments if you felt like there's something renewed within you, something shifted, something changed. You felt better about yourself. You felt a connection. Maybe there was a few tears in your eyes. Maybe you got a bit tearful. People have many different types of reactions to this. And so you may have felt that the number reduced. And what I'll often do in my courses is I'll say, okay, where are you now? People say, oh, I've got a lot of pain in my body. I'm a number 8. I say, great. Okay, we know the starting point. Now we do a technique and then I say, what's the new number? They say, well, it went down to a 3 or a 2. Great. That's how we can sort of measure what's going on. And I do this all the time. I take people from a high number, so people with trauma. Okay, how much effect has it had on your life? They say it's an 8. I do a process. Okay, how much now? Oh, it's down to a 4. Wow, that's weird. Like it feels different. I feel lighter. It feels like it's not hassling me as much. Great. What we're doing is we're getting rid of the darkness and we're bringing in light. And as we get rid of darkness, bring in light, you feel more hopeful, you feel more happy, you feel more confident within yourself, all of those changes. Diane, I will send you a message, Diane, and just respond to that message. If you respond to that, that'll be a private message just to me, okay? All right, thank you for all those who have shared your phone number. I appreciate that. This works. It's very, very powerful and it's life-altering. Let me tell you about Michael. Michael was diagnosed with cancer in his liver. Now, healing the inner child helped Michael. Not only did we reduce and eliminate pain, I did that 3 times. I did a technique, got rid of all the pain in his body. Think about it, cancer is quite a painful thing. You know, a lot of people suffer with this. Now, Michael, we were able to get rid of all the pain in his body. It was gone. It was alleviated. He couldn't believe it. He was shocked. I was shocked. I couldn't believe how effectively these tools worked. The other thing is, Michael and a work colleague of Michael's were diagnosed with liver cancer at about the same time. 2 years later, his friend died. Michael's still with us and it's been a decade. He's still here after 10 years of being diagnosed. And look, I'll take credit for that. I did some healing work with him. We healed the inner child and his cancer went into remission. It's still there, but it's no longer actively killing him. It's now just sitting there. It's more benign than ever before. So I think it's incredible. Like these tools work. They work and they change lives. Now there's a little boy in the hospital and this was a friend of a friend. I took him there. He didn't have a vehicle at the time. He asked for my help. He went to visit this little boy and as I was there, I thought, you know what, I'm going to help this little boy. The little boy just received an injection about this big into his back. And that little boy was suffering with a heart condition. And the doctors were doing their best to help him. And he had tears streaming down his face because of the pain of this big injection. They put it into his back. And I said, you poor boy. And so I did a technique with him. We got rid of all the pain, all of it. And then his tears turned to tears of joy. His dad was so happy because his son's pain was alleviated. Think about that. If you're a parent, what does it feel like when your son suddenly is pain-free? Well, that's what we did. I showed him a technique. And once I teach people these techniques, I teach them to use it on themselves. It's not just for me to use, you use it. My goal is to help everybody get the tools and use them because they're effective, they work, and they're extremely powerful. All right, so key 2 is your ability to ensure that mindset and empowerment tools work every time. What were they again? The psychology of the instructor, play, pretend, full absorption, have fun. Next, how to experience happiness and excitement each and every day. Now, this is something that I discovered after going to a Tony Robbins event. Now, those of you who know or don't know Tony Robbins, you'll know that he actually is a high energy presenter and he gets people actively moving their bodies. Now, in my seminar, Unlock Your Incredible Self, I brought this in where I get people up, I get them jumping. I get people to experience it in their bodies and their nervous system because I realize that that makes change. One thing I discovered as well is that if you don't have a community of support, if you're truly on your own, then recovery from addiction is reduced to about 20%. The other 80% relapse. And so if you want change, you've got to be part of a community. A community group could be a church. It could be a social group. It could be a life coaching group like I run. So what you need for help and support is you need a group. You need some people who are empowered. I recommend getting a coaching group that you can be part of, like a coaching mastermind group. If you're part of a community like that, then everybody's there to uplift each other. Everybody's there to encourage each other. Nobody gets left behind because you're only as strong as the weakest psychology in the group. And so it's in everyone's best interest to help bolster everyone. You lift everyone up. You make everyone stronger. And so community is important. So what I discovered was I was doing it on my own and I was successful for a while. And then I realized that over time, the wheels can fall off. And so I started creating a community of people. And so now I invite people to come in to my coaching workshops and seminars and webinars. And now there's a wonderful group of people we meet together every week. We hold mastermind classes and it's just incredible. It's incredible for them, incredible for me. And it helps us all keep on track. Does that make sense? So you need it. And it's a weekly thing. So it's pretty much a weekly get together. It's actually once a fortnight or once every 2 weeks. We have the group coaching sessions. Then we have the tool development sessions in the other week. And then usually there's a seminar on the 4th week. So it's every week there's something happening. What I've created is a living course. It's a living program and every week something is going on. And so what I discovered is there's steps to this. Now, once you've got that community, what do you need? Well, the community is there to help you to develop and establish an effective morning routine. So more than just meeting with a group every week, you need something to keep yourself on track every day. Would you agree with that? Just drop yes in the comments if you agree with that. We need daily reminders because if we just rely on once a week, what are you going to do for the other 6 days? And so what we need is something to empower you every day. So think of a morning routine as a mini seminar you do for yourself in the morning. That's what it is. And so in the group, what we do is we have a morning routine that we talk about, encourage each other so that we can get ourselves going, get ourselves motivated each and every day. Next thing, after the morning routine, reinforce goals. Is if you don't have a way to reinforce your goals and you forget about your goals, you start floundering. You start making no progress. You're like a one-legged duck. You're just swimming in a circle. Who's ever felt that way in their life? You're just going round and round. It's like you're in the rat race. Think of your finances. You're in the rat race. You're working hard and not getting ahead. So that's the idea, and that's why we need a group or a community where we can reinforce those goals. Next, is future belonging. This is something else I teach in the course, is that you need to enjoy feeling the feelings of the person you want to be. You want to be a millionaire? Feel what it's like to be a millionaire. You want to be a billionaire? Feel what it's like to be a billionaire. You want to be in a happy, high-functioning relationship? Feel what it's like to love and be loved. You want to have great physical health? Feel what it's like to have vitality and energy. So the idea is we want to start practicing feeling the feelings of that person you want to become, that person you want to be. And we call that future belonging. And I show people step by step how to do that as well in the course and program. And the next thing is we practice focusing on what we have. And this is where we bring in the principle of reframing. You can reframe your mind in multiple different ways and focus in on what you have. And so some people think about lack and they say, well, I have nothing. I don't have money. I don't have a good relationship. I don't have this. I don't. So a lot of people are living their life in lack and limitation. And lack and limitation becomes a habit, and that habit can lead to the destiny of your life. Now, we want to turn that around. And if you can focus on just one thing that you have at a time and start building from that, you can start getting what's called a gratitude list. And if you focus on what you have and you start to become more grateful, I want you to know that gratitude is the great healer. And there's incredible things that happen when you are grateful. If you want to be great, be full of gratitude, or be grateful, full of gratitude. Grateful, it's in the word. Okay, so you focus on what you have. So if you really want to, and what's that third key? Let's go back and have a look at it. How to experience happiness and excitement each and every day. What you want is you want an empowering morning routine. You want goals that you can focus on. You want a future belonging and start practicing feeling the feelings, and you want to focus on what you have. And the community helps to support you with that. So my goal is to not just teach you an idea and then off you go, but to give you support, to take you by the hand, to guide you along through this process of change and transformation. Because I know that I have greater success with people when I don't just teach them something and off they go, when I answer their questions, when I help them, when they feel supported. Now, it's not just one person working on your life, you've got two people working on your life, you and me, both working on your life. And that makes the world of difference. All right, let me ask you this. Does that all make sense? Does it all make sense? Just type yes in the comments if it makes sense. So Mary was nagging her husband because she wanted more attention. I worked with Mary and I said, what do you want attention for? She said, well, I want to feel good. I want to feel happy. I want to feel like I'm valued. And I said to Mary, I said, do you value yourself? She said, well, I hadn't really thought of that. I said, why don't we practice valuing yourself? Why don't we practice you giving yourself love? And so we did that. We started bringing in a practice where she started loving herself. Her need for validation from her husband reduced. And as a result, she started giving herself all this love. She didn't need his praise anymore. She didn't need his attention. She didn't need all of the things that she thought she needed from him. And guess what else happened? When she started loving herself and her self-worth increased, he started treating her differently. He started paying more attention to her. He started giving her more of everything that she wanted. It's so interesting that she was using nagging to try to get what she wanted, realizing that if she had an insane level or a great level or a healthy level, at least, of self-love, that she would get everything that she wanted from her lover. And that was what happened. I thought that was incredible. What a result. Now, with Diana was a single woman with 3 children. And Diana thought to herself, who would want me? Who would want me? So we did some inner child healing work with Diana. So we cleared out the inner child. We also used a technique called strategic visioning, where she saw in her mind the man that she would one day marry. And she was really excited about this. Within 12 months, Diana was married. She had 3 daughters. She married a man with 5 sons. So they became a real Brady bunch. And it was just amazing to see that this came into fruition because she healed the inner child and she used other techniques in the world of personal development like strategic visioning. She was able to create that. Next is Becca. Becca had a meltdown at work. She was overworked. She was given assignments from her boss. She didn't have good boundaries and she was a people pleaser. And so when a boss asked her to do something, she would just do it. And she did more and more until she hit a stress level that was too much for her nervous system, too much for her body, and she had a complete breakdown in the workplace. Now, she contacted me after one of these sessions and we had a discussion about how she could get some healing, and we started working together. And so with Becca, we started establishing, after dealing with her inner child work, we did inner child healing first. We started then working out strategies for setting up boundaries in her life. And we realized that people-pleasing attitude and behavior stemmed from her childhood. And so healing that out allowed us then to establish the boundaries that she needed for her life. So quite often, the work you need now stems back to your childhood. If you heal that inner child completely, everything changes. Everything's different. Everything's resolved. Does that make sense? Just drop yes in the comments if that makes sense. We do that inner healing work. We create change and the healing takes place. So it's amazing how this works. I think it's incredible. Isn't it amazing though that Diana was able to find a lover even though she doubted herself? She thought, 3 children, who's going to want me? Who's going to want me with all this baggage? Mary was nagging her husband, and then she just gets all of this attention because she healed her inner child. And Becca, setting up boundaries, reestablishing herself in a workplace, she was only able to do that because she went through the healing process. So realize these techniques, these tools, they're so incredibly powerful. They change lives and they'll change your life. I promise you that. It's incredible how it works. I always say, let's find out what it's going to do for you. I don't know the outcome, what's going to happen. I didn't know when I was working with Mary that her husband was going to show her more attention. That was a natural result that occurred from her inner child healing work. And so realize that you heal your inner child and something's going to change in your world. Maybe you'll get shown more attention. Maybe you'll be able to get friends easier. Maybe something will happen. And so when it happens, just be aware of it. Look for it. Expect it. Because that's what happens when you heal your inner child. So the third step was the ability to experience happiness and excitement each and every day, maintain and establish a morning routine, and get a community that's going to help and support you. Set clear goals. Make sure you reinforce them. Make sure you're practicing your future belonging. Make sure you focus on what you have. You're grateful. And all of these things happen as a result of you investing in yourself and taking the time. And you can invest in a number of ways. People think, well, investment is money. Well, it's not. You can invest in time. You can invest in energy. You can invest in your talents or put your skills into something. And the fourth way is you can invest with your money. So there are 4 ways to invest: time, talents, energy, and money. And so what I'm going to do is I'd like to share with you now and just realize that this seminar here and the content part of it, that's the seminar. It hasn't finished yet though, because some people want to go further. They say, Josh, thanks for sharing what you've shared today. Who got some benefit out of today? Just drop yes if you got some good benefit from today. Who's got something they can go away and practice with straight away? You're already feeling more hopeful and you can already use some of the stuff. Great. So if that's been a benefit to you, then all I want to do is just share with you, there's a program put together, which for some of you, it won't be right for everyone, but for some of you here, it may help you get to the next level